Hansel and Gretel. On the banks of an extensive forest there was a poor hut, made of tree trunks, where a woodcutter lived with his second wife and their 2 little children, born from the first marriage. The boy was called Hansel and the girl, Gretel. Life had always been difficult in the woodcutter's house, but by that time things had gotten even worse and there wasn't enough food for everyone. Hansel and Gretel's stepmother didn't like the children one bit and didn't want to share with them what little food they had. So she convinced her husband to take the children into the forest and leave them. In the next room, the 2 children had heard everything, and Gretel burst into tears. Gretel cried, but Hansel told her not to worry, because he had an idea. Hansel waited until his parents were asleep, left the hut, picked up a handful of white pebbles that shone in the moonlight. Then he went back to bed. The next day, at dawn, the stepmother woke the children. The family went to cut firewood in the forest. The parents lost sight of the children and abandoned them. Hansel had marked the path with the pebbles and, at dusk, they managed to return home. The father was happy, but the stepmother was not. She sent them to sleep. Since she was mean, she planned to take them even further the next day. Hansel heard his stepmother again convincing his father to abandon them, but this time he couldn't leave the room to pick up the pebbles, as his stepmother had locked the door before going to bed. Before leaving early in the morning, they were given a piece of stale bread to eat. Hansel, instead of eating the bread, kept it. When walking through the forest, Hansel threw bread crumbs on the ground to mark the way back. Arriving at a clearing, the stepmother ordered them to wait until she picked some fruit over there. But they waited in vain. She had abandoned them again. Hansel reassured Gretel that they just needed to follow the breadcrumb path. But the birds had eaten all the crumbs left on the way. The children walked a long way until they saw a little house made entirely of chocolate, cookies and sweets. Hungry, they ran and began to eat. Suddenly, an old woman appeared calling them to come in, because there was much more food inside. The old lady let them eat a lot until they fell asleep in comfortable beds. When the children woke up, they thought they were in heaven. Everything looked perfect. However, the old woman was an evil witch who imprisoned Hansel in a cage so that he would get fat, because she wanted to devour him, and made Gretel her slave. The little girl did all the work around the house by herself, and she barely had enough to eat. Every day, the witch asked Hansel to show his finger through the grid, to see if he had already gained weight. The boy, very attentive, realizing that the witch saw little, showed her a chicken bone. And she got furious, complained to Gretel, ordering her to give the boy more food so that he would get fat soon. A few days passed until one morning when the witch woke up. Tired of waiting so long, she immediately shouted that she would have a feast that day. She ordered Gretel to boil water in a very large cauldron and give her brother plenty of food, because that same day he would be devoured. Very tense, Gretel obeyed the orders but knew she needed to act soon to try to escape and get her brother out of there. Seeing Gretel so close to the cauldron, the witch had no doubts. She decided to push the girl and cook her first. Realizing it, Gretel jumped up and grabbed the chandelier and the witch fell into the boiling cauldron. Hansel and Gretel vibrated with joy. The witch had turned into a stew. Along with the disappearance of the witch, the magic of the candy house also disappeared and the little house disappeared. To Hansel and Gretel's surprise, the only thing left of the house was the treasure that the witch guarded. Very happy, they took the treasure and wandered through the forest for hours, until they recognized the way home. Upon arriving at the cabin, they found the father sad and repentant. The stepmother had run away and the father was desperate for what he had done to the children. When he saw them, the father was very happy and ran to hug them. Hansel and Gretel showed him all the fortune they had brought. Now there would be no more worries about money and food. They therefore had a peaceful and happy life.
Hello, little friend. Could you find me in the story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.